avoided using newspapers as part of my genealogy research for a long time. But recently, I solved a family history mystery in the newspapers. So let me ask you, are you using newspapers in searching for your ancestors? No? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you how to do it. Hey there, if we haven't met before, I am Lisa Listen with Are You My Cousin? And this YouTube channel is designed to help you find your ancestors, grow that family tree, but not be overwhelmed in the process. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, you're in the right place. Okay, now in today's video, be sure and watch all the way to the end because we are going to be talking newspaper research. And throughout the video, I will be sharing with you various tips and tricks to get the most out of your genealogy research in those newspapers. Today's video is sponsored by newspapers.com, the largest online newspaper archive. Newspapers are like time machines, and newspapers.com archive allows us to discover stories about our ancestors that we might have otherwise overlooked. By reading about the events in the newspaper, it's a little bit like having that time machine that allows us to be there in the moment. And with over 8 million digitized pages that span over 3 centuries, newspapers.com provides an unparalleled gateway into that past. For listeners of today's show, newspapers.com is extending a discount of 20% off on a publisher's extra subscription. Just use the code AreYouMyCousin at checkout and get ready to uncover the extraordinary in newspapers.com. So why did I avoid that newspaper research for so long? Well, because I thought it would be hard, and I was a bit intimidated. There are a lot of newspapers out there, and how in the world would I ever find the few articles on my ancestors in all of the digitized pages out there, right? Plus, I did not recognize the importance of understanding the community events and what was happening in the world in general and how that would impact my ancestors and why I needed to understand that in order to move my research forward. And yes, that's straight up social history. We need to understand our ancestors on that level to really be able to get to know them and to be able to progress with our research further down the line. If you struggle with newspaper research as well, go ahead and hit that subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner of the video. That way you will be notified when I post brand new videos right here to the Are You My Cousin YouTube channel. And yes, there will be more on newspaper research to come. Okay, so let's solve my family history mystery and learn how to do some newspaper research along the way. Let me introduce you to my great-grandfather, Connie Howard. Now, the story that had come down to me was that he had been hit by a train at some point. I had no details other than the location, which was in Raleigh, North Carolina. So really, what was the story? I had no idea what precipitated the events and what happened afterwards. But I can give you a quick spoiler alert because Connie did live to be 103, so we do know, obviously, that he survived that train accident. All right, so we are over here at newspapers.com. This is the newspaper archives that I go to search for Connie and the train accident. So let me show you how I would go about structuring my search to get the best results for this. Certainly, starting from the homepage, I am going to type in his name. And immediately what you see pops up is it's asking me if I want to put quotes around Connie Howard. And in this case, I do, because that's going to tell the search engine here that I want to search on, this is a name where Connie and Howard are close to each other or next to each other or with close proximity, because with the names like Connie and Howard, if it were searching on those individually, I'm going to get thousands of results that really would not even be pertinent to my search. So when I'm doing names, I like to use quotes, but you want to remember that sometimes they might have used a different name. So I will play with that a little bit, but in this case, because this was the predominant name that he went by, it's what I'm starting with. So I'll click that. Now on the date, I don't really know the exact date that this happened. I'm not even 100% sure which decade of the 1900s it took place in. But so I'm going to leave that open for now and I can adjust that later. I do happen to know the location. I do know that it likely took place or that it did take place in Wake County, North Carolina. And I'm going to leave it at the county level as opposed to going ahead and putting in the city. I just want to keep it a little bit wider so I can capture anything that might be a regional type of newspaper as well. So I'm going to click search. Over here, what we can see on the results page is that if you look to the right here, it does tell me that it's found matches, and by city, it's kind of separating them out. So I have, a little over 100 matches for this. Now that's doable to search through, but I can actually narrow this down a little bit more because as you see, this date range goes all the way to 2018. Well, I can tell you Connie died in 1995, so there's no reason to be looking at these newspapers that are later. And I do believe he was probably in the Wake County area, 30s, 40s, 50s, likely. And I'm just an educated guess, but I'm just going to drag this down. Let's just take this down to say mid 1950s and see if that will help narrow things down even further. So I'm down to 25 results. Perfect. Let's scroll through and see what we have on this. So I can actually look at this and see here that it says services held. That's actually going based on the date. That would be the obituary for his first wife. We can come down. We have, so here's the entry from 1946. Looks like he had a conviction of probably some drunken driving. Looking at this little snippet here. Scrolling on down, we see Mrs. Connie Howard. So it's talking about his wife. Okay, so not quite as worried about that. We're going to keep on coming down, see what else we might find here. Okay, so as I scroll down, what I'm looking for in these little snippets would be anything that would indicate, say, a crash, a train, anything that could indicate that, hey, I'm looking at some type of accident. And here we have one that's from the Raleigh Observer here in Wake County. It's dated January 31st, 1938. We see the word crash here. Connie M. Howard, and M is his middle name, and his wife's name was Thelma. I know this is going to be an interesting one to see. I also see subsequent ones here, also in 1938 in October. So let's click on this one and see what we can find out happened, if we can get any details about that train crash. Okay, so this looks like we found the actual original article here. So let me enlarge that just a bit for you guys so you can see that a little bit better. Here we go. Here we go. So we have Connie M. Howard and his wife, Thelma Howard, suffered severe injuries Saturday afternoon in a train automobile collision at Seaboard's Hargett Street crossing last night and were reported at Rex Hospital as resting comfortably. So this tells us what happened here, a little bit about it. So he suffered a broken collarbone, some rib fractures. His wife was shaken up very severely when their car was in a collision with that train. Now, this tells us the actual location of the incident. It tells us their injuries, so we do know a little bit of what happened. And we have here their address. I thought this is a fabulous little find here that the newspaper recorded that Mr. and Mrs. Howard resided at 614 West Hargett Street. That's really interesting. I find that interesting because of where the actual accident took place at Hargett Street crossing. So likely they were close to home and maybe going to home, perhaps going out somewhere else. So this gives me a little bit of information. Doesn't tell me a ton, but I do know the date and I do know the location about it. So this is a nice little interesting snippet here. One of the things I definitely want to do is share this with family because we're trying to solve this history mystery. So I'm actually going to clip this one a little bit. I'm going to take a little clip. I can do that so that I can get let me back out a little bit so I can get that. There we go. Here we go. There we go. I can get that. I can clip it. I can say, okay, yes, I can add a detail. So we can call it Connie's train accident. And I can put any kind of tags here. Now, I typically tag with location, dates, and surnames. That's just my personal preference, but it helps me know if I'm searching for the file later, I'll have it. So I'll put in Howard. I'll put in 1930s, since that's when it happened. Oops. 30s. And I would click in Wake County. So that would tell me what was going on. And then I can absolutely save that clipping. Perfect. And then I can also download it if I wish to by clicking print and download. And then I can email it to any of my family members that might be interested in that as well. So let's see what else happened to Connie. So this tells me what's going on. So let me see if there are any follow-up articles on this. And this is a tip when you are doing newspaper research, and that is to seek out follow-up articles, particularly if there's been an accident or something untoward that happened to your ancestors. So be sure and seek out follow-up articles. So he was actually hitting that train in January. So I want to look at everything after January of 1938. So let's peek on down here. So we have the News and Observer here. If I click on that, we have October 8th, 1938. I've seen the word damages. I'm seeing the word railroad here. So that tells me that this is probably an article about particular incidents. So let's see what it has to say. So here's the article. Apparently, this case ended up in the Wake County Superior Court. It goes on to tell us a little bit all the details. So what we have here is that Connie and his wife were asking each $25,000 in damages against the railroad company and $100 for the loss of the 1929 Ford that he was driving that had been destroyed. So it tells us, again, more of the details about where it actually happened. It tells us that he says that the automatic warning signals were not operating, and apparently they did not make a sufficient case against that because the jury returned with a verdict that the railroad company was not negligent. The couple had not proved that the railroad's signals were not working, and so they did not get their damages or the money for the car. So this tells me a little bit about that whole incident. And now we have the story about what happened with Connie and being hit by the train. And so we know definitely more about that story and have solved that family mystery that I can now share with my family members. I hope you found that helpful. I hope it was helpful for you to be able to peek over my shoulder, so to speak, as I searched for the stories on my great-grandfather in the newspapers and how I structured those searches and was able to filter those out. And I hope that will give you some encouragement as well to be able to start searching for your own ancestors in newspapers. Again, if you need that code for the discount for newspapers.com, it will be in the description below. And if you'd like to find more tips, tricks, and strategies for finding your ancestors, be sure and watch the video on your screen now.